Hello everybody and welcome. So this is 5 common and not so common art journal backgrounds. The first one I'm doing is a not so common one, which is gluing metal gear charms, kind of like steampunk gear charms to the page. And I'm using a hot glue gun. And then I'll be painting it with black gesso. And then I will be adding a patina effect. And this journal happens to be mixed media pages. That's my Liquitex black gesso. These are pretty heavyweight pages, especially made for mixed media. I recommend that for your art journal. That mixed media journals are really good, and the paper is pretty decent heavyweight. I know people watching this are going to be both beginners and experienced art journalers, so that's why this is among 5 techniques I'm going to show you. There are going to be some common and not so common techniques. So covering the whole page with black gesso, and actually it's the first time I've used black gesso. And this is a 3-set paint set of to give you a patina effect by Prima marketing. And if you have these colors without buying the set, if you happen to have similar colors to this, I think you can get the same effect. So you can see it's that kind of mint green, probably a little less than mint green, a kind of shade of mint green. And next layer is going to be turquoise, blue, and the last layer will be copper, metallic. You would need definitely a metallic paint. So the directions are to use a palette knife to apply this. And actually, it's my first time using this set. And there's the turquoise blue. A lot of you, I'm sure, will have these colors. It's my first time using this paint set, and the effect that I ultimately get is more of, I call, an abstract patina effect. I don't know if it's strictly a patina effect that you would realistically see. I would call it more of an expressionistic abstract patina effect. But definitely you have to dry them between layers. And there's the metallic copper. I'm holding it there extra long because I was trying to hold it and see if I could get it to let it show better. And here I decided it's just better to apply with the fingers, but the directions did say for the first 2 colors you should apply with a palette knife. So I am experimenting myself by showing you these techniques. They're not necessarily techniques that I've used before. I have used the patina effect in ink sprays, but never with acrylic paint. So now here's some close-up shots. The light green paint actually has a lot of texture. It was a granular paint, but I don't think that you need that. You could probably achieve the same effect just with a similar green color like that. It doesn't have to have that texture in it. Some really great texture though. Okay, second technique. Okay, is a good one for if you want to cover some splotches or stains that have gotten on your pages. Here's a very common technique. It's using text wherever you might get it from, like ripping it from an old book, magazine text. There's many ephemera packs that come with it, and I use matte gel medium. There's many ephemera kits or packs that come with like vintage text as well. So there's just all different kinds of text sources that you can find. And again, it's a good way in case, like a lot of times the back side of journal pages get seepage on them from if you did some heavy water medium. It will often, the edges might get some seepage on them. And you could always cover that, of course, with any kind of collage materials, but here's a way to do a background that would cover any stains that you had on your, unwanted stains that you had on your page. And again, since this is a mixture of common and not so common techniques, here's one of our most common techniques that many art journalers know about. If you don't have matte gel medium, Mod Podge would be good. I don't think I would recommend glue stick. Glue stick tends to not adhere completely well. You probably could use glue stick as long as you're gonna you are gonna be putting the layer of gesso on top of this. If that's all you had, I would say go ahead and use that, and then make sure you definitely use gesso. So here I'm going to use clear gesso. In the last technique I used black gesso. There's also white gesso, and I think there's even other colored gessos available, but I own black, white, and clear gessos. And I could have used white gesso, and that would have knocked back some of the text in the background and make it not so obvious. But in this case, I decided to use clear gesso. It doesn't go on clear, but it dries clear. But it's your choice. But I do recommend gesso after this technique. You should use gesso. Okay, next technique is going to be handwriting, and just legible and illegible writing. Right now I'm just doing illegible writing. I'm writing out some thoughts, and it's cathartic. It's kind of like if you want to write out some negative feelings, some negative thoughts, you could do that, or whatever comes to your mind. It could be positive thoughts and feelings that you write. And so it's a nice way to start a journal page that it might totally get covered up in the end, this background might not even show through in the end, but it's a nice way to start where you're writing, you could be writing intentions, you could be expressing negative feelings and thoughts, and it doesn't even have to be legible writing. And I'm doing this, that Portfolio oil pastels, they're water soluble oil pastels. Portfolio brand, and I believe that's Crayola, from the Crayola company. They don't say it on there, but I think I've read that somewhere. And now I'm going to use just a wet paintbrush, and it doesn't totally dissolve, but it does smear it a little bit and mix the colors up a little bit, creating a little bit light purple. But I'm not finished. I'm going to fill up the whole page, and now I'm going to use Gelatos, and Gelatos are definitely water soluble. So these two techniques that are showing side by side are definitely quick and easy techniques for a background. And there, I like that message. It's okay to be imperfect. I'd like to have that as my mantra for 2019. Because I think it really frees you up. And also it's self-caring to not demand perfection of yourself. I mean, not to demand it so that it drives you crazy. If it just drives you crazy and you're miserable because you're trying to do things perfect, then I say it's okay to be imperfect. Some people, they just thrive on perfectionism, and if that's how they thrive, then good for them, but perfectionism pretty much makes me miserable. So I love to say to myself, it's okay to be imperfect. And the style of this page kind of goes with that. Pretty messy. And the Gelatos are more water soluble than those water soluble oil pastels. So that's pretty much the end of that background. And we have two more to go. Okay, here's one that's going to be not so common. I'm using a Tim Holz. It's called Harlequin. The name of that stencil is Harlequin, because of course it has a Harlequin pattern on it. And I'm going to use modeling paste. Liquitex modeling paste. Through the stencil with a palette knife. Now I'm gonna, yes, many of you have seen texture paste or modeling paste through a stencil, but there's going to be something more that I add to this that's going to make it a not so common art journal background that not many of you probably have seen before. But yes, texture paste just by itself like that can be a background. But I'm going to add something to it. And for those new art journalers out there, in case you were thinking like, oh, because the way I'm doing it, I am doing it like one page is different than the other page side by side, each page is different. You can do full journal spreads, where that's what you call it when you do the okay, hold on just a minute. So I dried that, and now I'm going to use Magicals by Lindy, and these Magicals are very pigmented they're activated by water, and they're very highly pigmented powders that aren't just one color. They are pretty magical, and they leave a shimmer and a sheen in the end also when dried. So they're water activated, and I'm going to sprinkle them on with a fan brush. And I'm going to start with the pink. But like I was saying, if you can do like 2 pages side by side, can be one journal spread page. Instead, I'm doing a different idea on each side of each side. And the pack of Magicals that I got, they do come in all different color sets. The set that I got is called Drop Dead Diva, which is that's a pretty funny name, but the colors are very vibrant. So there it goes, a water bottle and spraying on water. And the pink is super vibrant. Wow, I would call that a dark teal. It's awesome. I don't know if you even call that turquoise. And again, for the new art journalers, I have a paper that's a larger paper that's tucked under that page that's helping catch the drippage. So anytime you're doing something messy, it's a good idea to have a big drop page underneath the journal page that you're working on. And I'm using the water bottle just to move the water and move the pigmented water all around. So next is drying it, and it doesn't take that long to dry. I think it's under 5 minutes that it dries. Now here's close-up shots of the finished page. And you can see some of the shimmer and sheen. I mean, I did not add any varnish to this. It's just like the Magicals have these properties on their own. So it's really awesome. And the last technique is going to involve watercolor paints, any kind of watercolor paints you have. I'm spraying the page first. And I'm going to use one of my larger, I'm using the mop brush. That's what they call that kind of brush. It's a mop brush. And I'm just going to lay on color any old way. I'm just going for covering the whole page with colors that coordinate with each other, that will not make muddy brown. I'm going to mainly use just red, blue, and purple. Now this technique, the first step is the watercolor, and then I'll be adding something to this. Okay, and for new art journalers, I would not recommend this if you have thin journal paper. Now this journal I'm using, like I said, is mixed media paper in the journal. If you have thin journal pages, you should glue together, just with a glue stick, glue together like 3 pages together. That way you'll get a good thickness for a really water-based technique like this. Okay, now I'm going to use clear plastic wrap. It's still wet. And this is a pretty common technique, but maybe in between common and not so common. So then I lay on the plastic wrap and kind of pinch it to create, manipulate it to try to create wrinkles in it. And I let that dry overnight. Drying overnight, it definitely will dry. It will be dry in the morning. So this is the next day, and I remove the plastic wrap, and you never know what design you're gonna get, and that's the design I got. I was surprised that we had brown, because I thought it was gonna be coming out purple, but it's a nice line design in there. But you'd have to experiment with all the different ways to get different effects. So thank you so much for watching. For those in the Art and Soul Studio Facebook group, I can't wait to see what you guys create, and it's linked down below.